Hello there, and welcome to the Melanated Midlife Podcast. I am your host, Tequila Willery, and this week I am joined by my guest, Zach Nunn, who is also a podcaster. His is named the Living Corporate Podcast, and he also has a platform that does so many other things of the exact same name. I highly recommend that you check out his podcast. But the reason that Zach is here is because I had so many questions as a representative of the over 50 corporate baddies. I really thought that there were some things that we've internalized, some lessons that we all needed to unlearn. And he was the perfect person to go to because his organization actually is at the intersection of so many of these conversations with corporations that are trying to improve the experiences of their teams and also that of their customers. So we got into a lot of things about being a marginalized person in the corporate space, where the economy might be going, and how you yourself might need to start preparing. So, if this is sounding like something that is hitting a nerve, then you need to pay attention to this episode. So, join me in welcoming Zach Nunn to the podcast. Zach Nunn, thank you for being here on the Melanated Midlife Podcast. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. Also, shout out to the podcast name, Melanated Midlife. It's very cool, very dope.
Hey, it is. I tell you, it comes from the heart because it was truly me and my husband. I call him my silent partner
Mm.
because we're very vocal when there's no cameras or anything on. But he's just like, oh, I like that. You need to do something with that. Put it on a T-shirt. I'm like, no, we're gonna have a podcast about it. So if anybody is ever trying to find it, if you see Melanated Midlife anywhere, it is tied to this or the platform, the book, everything. So, but with you, living corporate is also extremely catchy. That is the platform that you have founded, sir. So, kudos, congratulations. I'm assuming that things are successful because you're still in it.
That's
So,
right. That's right. Yeah. So like almost 8. Yeah, going on 8, 7 years in, more than
hey.
7 years in. Like we started in 2018. Yeah, really thankful, really excited. Continues to be excited about the things that Living Corporate is doing for sure.
I have so many questions for you, and I'm going to echo questions that the audience is probably thinking when they hear that term corporate, because we out here in these corporate streets still don't quite understand the game as over 50. We've got so many things that we think we're doing wrong. So
Mhm.
you are going to be our resident expert for the moment to help
Okay.
us either confirm or disclaim some of the myths so that we
Mhm.
can do a little bit better. But before we get there, tell everyone a little bit about your background because you didn't just wake up one day and found a company. You
No,
actually had some leaps in between.
for sure. And I think like family is an important part of sharing my background, right? So both sides of my family are from Mississippi. Both of my grandparents were sharecroppers. They picked cotton, and both did not finish middle school. One of them
Mhm.
didn't finish elementary school. The other one did not finish middle school. On my mom's side of the family, I'm the first man to start and graduate from a four-year university. And then on my dad's side of the family, I'm a second generation reader. Like my dad and his brothers, my uncles, taught my grandfather how to read. So
Wow.
when I entered like the world of work after graduating from the University of Houston in 3 years, I didn't have like this organic network. I didn't have friends of friends or neighbors, people to kind of help me, integrate into work or help me understand exactly what to do. And here's the companies you need to apply for. I was just out there getting it really on my own. What I realized was, I started as an HR manager at Target. And then I went on to work in various industries, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, consulting, tech, and the industries go on and on and on. But what I realized was, is like I'm coming into the world of work. I'm 6'2", 280 pound black man trying to like just get it in where I can. And I'm oftentimes one of the onlys in most spaces that I engage. And so, like, what does it mean for me, especially as a young black man? I'm 20. I'm like, yeah, I think I wasn't even 20, 21 at the time because I graduated early. So I'm trying to figure out all this stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate work. And here I am. There's no one I can really talk to give me the real. Um, and so as time went on, I finally decided, what does it look like to create content that is not centered on white acceptance, white sensitivities, white feelings, white anything? Like, what does it look like just to have frank conversations? Because I was blessed in my time in corporate America over 13 years for people that did look like me to pull me aside and like tell me the real. Hey, look, I know you think Jessica's nice. She's lying. Hey, she is playing with you. I know you
They were
think,
real.
right. Listen, you asking everybody for feedback. Them people do not care about that. They just want to know, are you going to do what they say or not? I know you're
Mhm.
trying to get promoted. Stop talking about how you want to get promoted. This is what you need to do. Right. So it was just really frank conversations, an insight that I wouldn't have gotten if I wasn't one, blessed to just meet those people. But then two, I was really, really gregarious and like very aggressive about looking for mentors and looking for coaches. I was really sociable that way. But everyone isn't like socially enterprising in that regard. And so like, what does it look like to create, to democratize that type of insight and wisdom and make it accessible to anybody? And that's where Living Corporate started. Living Corporate started as a podcast focused on centering and amplifying Black voices at work. And we started by just focusing on Black executives, entrepreneurs, activists, elected officials, influencers, artists. The list goes on and on. As time went on, we expanded our scope from Black to just marginalized people at work. At the same time, I'm still a Black man, so you're gonna hear a Black perspective every time you listen to this podcast. It's a Black podcast, and so that's really like, you know, where it started though. It started from me being in the world of work, being one of the onlys, and finally deciding to create something that was honest and transparent and candid related to employee experience for those in the margins.
So you have seen some things, I'm
For
sure.
sure, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I want to go back to you making the statement about being one of the onlys, being a tall, I would assume when people see you, you're physically very intimidating. Or, I'm 5'2", so
No, I feel you. No, I feel you. You know, and the funny part is, yes, I've been told that. The funny part is that like I'm a pretty soft guy. I have a face like a Teddy Graham. Like I'm not out here. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so funny. And look, everybody's biased, right? But like, I think I'm on the cute side of the intimidating scale. My bone structure isn't that crazy. And so,
Right.
but anyway, there's a whole nother conversation about like research that's shown that, man, it's so interesting. There's research that's shown that like Black men with rounder faces tend to be in more executive positions, where Black men with more angular faces tend to not, because rounder faces are seen as less intimidating than like really angular, sharp faces. It's really, and like also like um not smiling versus smiling, and the psychological impact that has on like your white peers in the workplace. It's very interesting stuff.
And I could go so deep with frustrations with all of that because these are all the mental gymnastics that we're having to play in every situation,
Mhm.
every environment, every interaction. Am I coming across this way? Am I signaling that I'm not a threat? Am I signaling that, all the things
Right.
we've heard it, we've had those conversations, but it still is. I feel myself, getting a little going there right now, just hearing that story, and it's all true. It's all true. But let me also ask you, I mean, with the corporate experience that you have, because mine is exactly the opposite. You started off in the corporate space. That's how you started your career. I came into the corporate space later in life. This was my career shift. So I come from education, climbed the ladder all the way up to the executive level, and then walked away from it.
Mm,
And my experience was that, did all the right things, checked all the boxes, said yes in all the right places, and it got me to the level I thought I wanted to be. And then once I got there, I was like, what else is there?
mm,
I think I want to try something else. So went into the corporate space and I had to learn so much about how the politics were different, how the judgment of our performance is different, and it was a little disheartening, if I'm very honest. It was very disheartening. And so I came to it from a lens of, somebody that had already been a leader and
mhm,
decided, I don't want that no more.
mm.
That's not what I thought it was gonna be.
Right, right.
And then with you coming, just the opposite, you're coming straight out of college, you go into corporate and you're from an HR position. I mean, like I said, I'm assuming you've seen a lot of things.
Sure.
Do we all eventually get to that point of maybe saying, "Is this all there is, or is there more to it?" What are you hearing from your side of the fence?
Yeah, so like the data shows that like the black experience, the marginalized experience is fairly predictable, right? Like,
Mm,
I'm sure you've seen the articles and read things that have heard the phrase "from pet to threat." This idea of like, like, come in, hey, we're really excited, we're cheering you on. We weren't ready for you to actually leverage your voice. We thought you were just something really cute to look at. Okay, now we don't know if we really want you around. Okay, now we don't. You know what? Actually, we don't want you around, and actually you're too much of a risk to our status quo, so now you need to leave. Like, that's a
mm,
common life cycle for black and brown talent, for queer talent, for women. That's common, right? And again, like the data would show, like if you look at organizations, you talk about turnover and retention, pay gap, leadership representation. Typically, black and brown people, but those in the margins are always getting the shorter end of the stick on those things. And so there's nothing like in this moment. Like this moment is hyper. There's a lot of focus on this moment because economically we're just in such a tumultuous place, and we don't really know what's going on. A lot of us don't really know what's going on, and so it's very like high anxiety in this moment. But the reality is, this has always been a journey and experience of black folks, black and brown folks at work, and I think that melanated folks at work, and so I think that that there's nothing like that's particularly headline grabbing in this season. What I will say is, I think that so it's interesting when I came into the world of work, and that was I graduated the university in 2011. When you go into work when I went to work back then, they had career ladders. Hey, here's your 7-year career here, or we think you're gonna at least be with us for 5 years, and we think you're gonna do these different things, and organizations had roadmaps, so it'd be like, hey, look, we're really trying to achieve something over the next 3 years, maybe the next 5 years. We have some moonshots, but here's our plan. There was this veneer of investment from the corporate side, from the business.
mm,
There was this
okay.
veneer of care that was presented, and I think just economically, like we're just further along in this late stage capitalist phase of America. So long-term investments out the window. Like these windows of return are getting shorter and shorter. So we're not really operating
Mm,
on like 12-month, 18-month 36-month cycles. We're operating on like quarter cycles. We're looking for immediate return. We're hiring people for a moon. We're hiring people for a moonshot we have this quarter. And if you don't make it, then you getting up out of here. And like that's really like where work is. Like work doesn't care about you. Like, and I don't think it ever did. But I'm saying because the pressure to drive and deliver returns are so much more pronounced because greed continues on, and like the point of capitalism is to make capital and to make more
yeah.
capital. It's not to like capitalism doesn't say, oh, we have enough and like we can just stay here. Like capitalism says, no, we need to make as much as possible at the expense of whatever is possible, including at the expense of people. And I think, like, to your question of like what's changed, like what am I hearing? I just think that veneer of care is gone. We now know
Yeah.
what it is very naked. And there was never a season where one could outperform white supremacy. But now it's just really plain and obvious, right? So like layoffs are now a core function of a business meeting and delivering value for their shareholders. Whereas
Yeah.
before, layoffs were presented as a last ditch effort, and frankly, something went horribly wrong. So now we're going to have to impact the lives of our employees and perhaps send some people into homelessness so that we can get back on track. But today
Right.
it's, well, no, we're going to send people into homelessness. I don't really care because we got to make sure that we get the height that we are performing and get the height and we get the most approval from our board, that where our shareholders are as excited as possible. And I think that like it's hard to then tell black people, specifically I'm talking about black folks because I am black, um that, hey, if you just work harder, you can like beat that, right? And the truth of the matter is, and like maybe it frustrates people, maybe hopefully it frees some people, you cannot outperform capitalism. You cannot outperform white supremacy. And I do think those terms are
Mhm.
interchangeable, but that's a podcast for another time. Point is, you cannot outperform
Yeah.
these things, right? So what I have seen, what I continue to see, what I believe I'm going to see in the future is black and brown folks are going to they're going to do one of two things. They're going to continue to work in denial and act like they can just keep on outperforming white supremacy until they get burnt out and they quit, only to look for a job and do it again and do it again and again and again. Or they're going to look for some other opportunities, either working for themselves or transitioning into something else for their own like well-being.
Yeah. Uh, you don't even realize it, but maybe you do. You said a few earth-shattering things in those last few moments, at least for the over 50 crowd, because we are coming from the mindset of exactly what you are dispelling right now. We really believe that we're going to work so hard that we will be appreciated, we will be seen, we'll be respected. And
Mhm,
from there, because I'm so loyal, because I've brought in so much money or whatever connections to this organization, they truly can't function without me.
mhm.
And that is unfortunately, that is a myth that we're trying to dispel over and over again, that your company, your organization, as lovingly as I can say this, they don't care about you.
No, they don't.
They care about reaching their goals. They care about their bottom line. And I'll also say, to be fair, as long as we come into the agreement all understanding this, we probably would be a little bit better off in
Oh
the
yeah.
end, at the end of that burnout line. But I want to reiterate what you were saying is that, you can't outwork these things. You cannot Michael Jordan your way through these organizations and assume that you're untouchable. You're always dispensable. You're always replaceable. You can always be the victim of a downsize. But the difference is that we're internalizing the story of this being a work family. And that's how we were raised. And I will say, going back to the generational differences between just you and I, like I said, you told me some of your background about how your parents are a little bit older, and all of the things, the wealth that you were able to take in from being around older relatives. But with Gen X, with us over 50, we're the 70s babies. We were 30 years old in 1980. We're still 30 years old in our minds, but we have been taught from our parents that are just, went through the civil rights movement, that you have to be better. You have to get the education.
Mhm.
You keep your nose to the grindstone and you just do the work. And at some point, you're going to be recognized for it. You're going to be plucked from the masses and rewarded for all the hard work and the hours, the blood, sweat, and
Mhm.
tears that you invest.
Mhm.
But that's not it. That's not what's
No,
really happening.
no, no, it's not. And I think, and look, like, there's value in working hard, and you should work hard. Like, you should work hard in the spirit of just working and doing good work is good for your person, right?
Right.
Like pausing on working as a means to like some capitalist end. I'm saying like just doing good work like that. And work is broad. Work can be serving in your local community. So work could be being a really good giver. Work could be
Yeah.
being really engaged in supporting your family. Like work is good. There's nothing wrong with work. The issue is when you think that you're going to get some sort of like special recognition. Because yeah, you're right. I mean, like people like you are a cog in a machine. I think what I something that
Yeah.
I learned also that like helped me understand about just the nature of business. So I used to think that if I'm driving revenue, um then I'm untouchable. If I can touch, if you can show me, if I'm growing your cash register, you're gonna have to give me what I want because I'm growing your cash register. And that people don't really care about race as much as they care about the only color people care about is green. Like I used to
Dream.
really
Yeah.
believe this, right? But then like what I had to consider was like like during like the 60s, like during segregation, when they had f- um the segregated pools, black folks would come in that pool, and then when the black folks got done swimming, they drain the pool, clean the pool, fill the pool back up,
Yeah.
rechlorinate the pool, then open the pool again for the white folks to get in. And it's like,
Right.
well, like it's a ton of money and time that you lost to serve whiteness. When if you was really purely serving capital and really focused on just making money, you would just have everybody swim in the pool at the same time. And so like there's something else that's psychological about like work and navigating white spaces that I think it's uncomfortable for people to maybe digest or ingest, but it's the truth, right? Which is it's really not a, like the money is a large part. Like, don't get me wrong, you need to make money, but white institutions will sacrifice making money in the spirit in the name of power and not ceding power to marginalized people all the time. When I thought about like I've been in very various positions in my career. I started in human resource, but I went on into consulting and I went into tech after that, where I was driving revenue, where like I was bringing in more revenue than all mad people. Like, I was creating products and I was doing all kinds of stuff, but they didn't want me to progress. They didn't want me to get promoted. Some of them, one time I worked at a company where I built something, it had a pipe, we generated $1 million pipeline in 3 months. And they said, you don't have a good product. This isn't a good idea. Only to turn around, copy what I did, change the name and say, we're going to do this instead. Right. They literally copied and pasted my work, but then said my work was bad. So, you know, it's just about having like a really clear picture. And I think of any season, especially when to your point about like those over 50, like, you know, like y'all, while you weren't like cognizant, like really moving around during the civil rights movement, like you have your parents and you have your family, like this is not wholly new to
Right.
y'all, right? It's kind of new to me, but I still have to respect and understand that my elders have been here, right? And we just have to be really mindful and thoughtful of like, okay, what does it mean? What does it look like in this season to honor ourselves and not throw ourselves on the pyre of acceptance from institutions that do not want us around and are not invested in our long-term well-being.
Now let me kind of bring that full circle because with the work that you've done and are doing with
Yeah.
Living Corporate,
Yeah.
you were very much at the center of the I don't know if I want to call it the DEI wave or the DEY listen to me. DEI period of
Sure.
history where everybody was able to tout their efforts at
Mhm.
in just appreciate maybe I should use air quotes, appreciating diversity,
Yeah.
prioritizing diversity, and now within one administration shift
Mm.
that has now changed. It almost feels illegal to say the term DEI out loud now.
Mhm.
So what does it look like now, both, you know, holistically at a macro level from what you're seeing from a
Mhm.
lot of different organizations, and then also with the exact work with the mission of Living Corporate?
Yeah, so it's to your point, right? Living Corporate started in 2018, 2 years before the murder of George Floyd. You're absolutely right. Like in the summer of that year, pro-blackness was very much so in vogue, right? Like, you know, I mean, white folks was handing me ice cream cones, crying, apologizing over and over, confessing all kinds of things to me that I didn't ask, but I already knew. So you didn't have to tell me that. I know you say that word when I'm not around. So that like you know, that was the thing. You're absolutely right. For me though, just because I believe that I really do understand majority culture. I really think I understand how white people work. I think most people on the margins understand how oppressor classes work because we have to for our own survival. So when everything was super popping and it was going crazy and Living Corporate was signing contracts and things of that nature, like really large contracts for Black History Month and Juneteenth and Pride, and I just knew that this was going to be a season. And I knew that eventually what was going to happen was that there was going to be some white lash. There was going to be some retrenchment. There was going to be some, like the resentment was going to boil over. And I knew that early because I remember even 2 months. I mean, I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers at the time when George Floyd was murdered. And I remember the racial equity council thing that they stood up, which was all about, okay, you know, targeting anti-blackness, like 2 months into the whole creation of it, like Asian folks and other ethnicities were asking, well, when are we going to stop talking about Black people? When can we talk about other issues too? There's other things going on. So you had to know that like this season was going to be really fleeting, and there was going to be even resentment during this season. And so for us at Living Corporate, we pivoted away from calling ourselves a DEI firm and started calling ourselves and we still consider ourselves an experiences management firm. So we're really prioritizing positive and fair experience for employees, meaning what does it look like for all of your employees to be treated with respect and fairness and thought and intention so that you can get the most out of them. And then and also positive and strong experience for your customers. So what does it look like to make sure that you're serving the market you're looking to engage the best way? And are you engaging the totality of your stakeholders, your potential stakeholders in any given market? And what does that look like? Are you leveraging all the data and insight that you have to optimize experience for both your customers and your employees? And do you recognize that without strong employee experience, you're not going to have strong customer experience? So we made that pivot a few years ago because we just in anticipation of, like, well before the Trump administration
Mhm.
came in, just anticipation of this, first of all, the space is too crowded. This DEI space, it just started getting like oversaturated with white liberals that did not really know what they were talking about, but were looking for a career change. So they
Mm.
started like saying a bunch of words and like just a bunch of it became like a joke, like it's a bunch of jargon that just doesn't actually mean anything or progress anything. But what it does is that it massages white guilt so that white folks feel better about being white. And it's like, that's actually not helpful to anybody. Like, I don't really care if you feel bad about being white or feel good about being white. Like, what does it look like to make sure that like you're providing the best experiences for your employees? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think people on the margins care to go to workshops where you're crying and holding their hands about why you say the N word and you're so sorry for saying the N word, and where you call yourself an oppressor and white supremacy this and dismantle the patriarchy that. We're at work. Like, can we do work better? Can we work better? And that's really where Living Corporate is focused on, right? Yes, we're going to talk about like lived experience through the lens of identity, because that's relevant to your job, right? Like,
Mhm.
someone who shows up who's in a wheelchair is going to have a different experience than someone who shows up and is not in a wheelchair. Someone who is a first generation American or a visa H1B worker is going to have a different experience than someone who's seventh generation American. Someone who speaks English as their first language and have a different experience than someone who doesn't. Someone who is trans and out as trans will have a different experience than someone who isn't. So these things are relevant to just like work, right? All your customers are not going to be white, cishet Christian men who are Republicans. You're going to have a wide array of customers, not just across identity, but also the identity spectrum, but also like the disability spectrum and the generational spectrum. So like, you understanding that's just good business. And like, we're trying to get back to that and acknowledging and respecting the fact that like we're talking to a capitalist company about how to navigate and just be good at business. I believe that's just a better strategy, right? Than trying to fight over terms and language that frankly don't really serve anybody but the people I already said.
Okay, now I'm hearing you, and I will speak for my demographic, my specific demographic, the over 50 Black women who are still a ways off from retirement, that are still, in this space, and we're doing the "theys don't care about us. They are da da da." We need to hear that message, that at the end of the day, we all need to come together and have the common mission of whatever the goal is for the organization.
Mhm.
Some of the things that we're carrying into the workspace, it's just a part of our identity, number one. I don't want to dishonor that, but some things we do kind of have to check at the door
Mm.
and say, all right, I personally, and maybe this is a generational thing, because I get bothered when I hear folks saying, bring your authentic whole self to work. And I'm like, no, I don't think that applies, because my whole self could be, rocking old school NWA while I'm typing up, a memo or something. I don't think everybody else wants to hear that necessarily. Or I could, all sorts of things, think of different use cases for that.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it is about coming together and deciding what is the common ground that we need to find to get the mission accomplished, whatever that mission is. If it's going to be, quarterly, if it's going to be some overall growth of the organization, fill in the blank, whatever
Mhm.
that is. But to understand that there are some things that we probably just need to realize, this is work. This is
So
it's that's it. It's work.
this goes back to what I was saying, right? So like, my parents are baby boomers. They're like right at the edge of baby boomers and Gen X. And then like my grandparents are like in a mid to late 80s. So I just was raised similar, right? Hey, this is work. Like, we can get cool. And I remember I had this whole conversation. This was like a couple jobs ago. I was talking to people about, they're like, what do you like to talk about your friends at work? And I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, whoever I'm cool with at work, it's because we both working. So like we might genuinely get to know each other and and develop a relationship, but it's not gonna be on some like random stuff that's not related to us working, right?
Yeah.
Like the goal is the work. So if you and I are working and you run up next to me while we working and then something comes up, okay, cool, we can talk about that. And then maybe we build a relationship over time, but I'm here to work. And I think that that's, so this goes back to just my critiques, right? So like, I'm going to be coming from things from an anti-capitalist lens. Like I don't actually agree with capitalism. I think it's the scourge of the world. So I believe that like when people say things like bring your whole authentic self to work, or, people talk about work-life blend, or, all these different things, the goal of that is to really create like like just a constant state of work, right? Like the idea is, well, bring your whole self to work so you can just always be at work. And it's like, no, like actually there's seasons and times for everything. I'm gonna be at this work from this time box to this time box. And when the work is over, I'm done working. And it's okay for me to show up one way at work and not tell you about my cats or my marriage or my last colorectal appointment, and I'm gonna have my own stuff over here. That's normal. But this
Yeah.
idea is, right, like when you look at these corporations, right, like they're a capitalist ideal would be that you work until you can't work anymore, right? Like the ideal would be, hey, have all your friends at work, eat at work, sleep at work, work. And it's like, no, right? It's okay to just not do that. And frankly, it's healthy. And I do believe it's healthy to be effectively boundaried when it comes to navigating your job, because your job is part of your identity. Your job is not your identity. And so
Mm,
we and so
mm.
and so sometimes we talk about bringing your whole self to work. It's like, yeah, if I didn't have family and friends and people that love me outside of this place, but by the grace of God, I have 4 kids under 6. I have a wife. Both of my parents are still alive. I don't actually have to do none of that. I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna fill out this TPS report, and I'm gonna go home.
Right,
You
that
know
is
what I
right.
mean?
I'm hearing you, and I'm thinking of even my own experience because, like I said, I come up in education. I say education raised me and did all the things. And I remember as a young teacher in my 20s getting to the building because I was high school. I was a high school teacher. 6 a.m., no later than 6 a.m. I was in that parking lot. And I actually had a smile on my face if I was the first car in the parking lot. That was just something. I was like, "Oh, I'm working hard today. I am." And then at the end of the day, 6 p.m. or later, last car out of the parking lot. I took pride in that, that I
Mhm.
was the one that spent the most time, spent the most hours, the most dedicated. Therefore, I must be a wonderful person because I've dedicated all of me to this job. Worthy work or not, everybody say, "Oh, but you're an educator, you're doing good work." Yeah, it was a job. I mean, I enjoyed it. I was very good at it, but it took 23 years in that environment for me to finally understand that it was a job, not a calling, not heart work as we've started indoctrinating, and that's me indoctrinating some folks with saying, "Oh, it's heart work. Therefore, you shouldn't be looking for the money. Therefore, you shouldn't complain about the hours." But after 23 years looking back and saying, "Okay, what do I have to show for it personally?" Yes, I feel good about the work that I did. I touched a lot of lives, but at the end of 23 years, I still have bills. I
Mhm.
still don't have the bank account that I would have hoped to have had in a career elsewhere. And what else could I have done? Where else could I have shared my energy during those 2 decades of work that could have achieved those other goals for myself? And this is something that I hear the young folks coming into the workforce, the 20 somethings, which I was brand new. You probably have heard the portfolio career terminology. I am brand new to that terminology, but it resonated with me where they say, "Oh, you have a portfolio career where you have the one job, the one big income stream, and then you've got 2 or 3 other side hustles or investments where money is coming in." And all of a sudden that light bulb went off and I was like, "Okay, this is what I'm doing. This is the goal. That what you're saying about understanding it's a job, it's a professional responsibility. I'm not necessarily coming to make friends. I am gonna do good work, but there needs to be some type of boundary that we all accept where work ends and where personal life, other joy, especially seeking joy, should begin. And we need that. And we need to be intentional with that mission for ourselves.
100%. And it's not to say again that friendships don't happen. Friendships can definitely happen, but allow it to happen organically through what you were there to do first, which is your work, right? Like
Mm,
I've met some incredible people. There are people who are in my life today who I would consider my closest friends, and I met them through work, but we wouldn't have been friends if we weren't working.
that's true. I have, and I just sent I have a group text with two former colleagues where, because when I got laid off from my first corporate job, it was a little bit of a surprise. I will say I felt like I was a top performer,
Mhm.
and like you say, you start to understand that that's part of the business model to make these cuts on occasion. And so I was one of those cut, and they weren't, but we stayed in that little text thread, and
Mhm.
having the common experience, the common work experience, they understood that, okay, we know what you did. We know that, the level of work that you did, and it's okay. You're still okay. That this happened to your job, but you as a person, you're still a good person. I needed to hear that, especially from people that were still on the inside of that bubble that I had just been kicked out of. I was also the oldest of that group, and that was definitely a lesson. It was an experience that I needed to have to get the full understanding of how the corporate space operates. And I feel like it all came full circle for me, former educator, where we basically put those types of sentiments out there, the work family, the dedication, bring your whole self to work, live, breathe, and eat your job type of things. And it was a lesson that needed to happen. But let me also ask you, with what you're seeing right now, with leaving corporate being, you're kind of at the intersection of a lot of conversations. And I know that we talked about how DEI has kind of been, I don't know. It is a taboo term that we just
Yeah.
whisper to trusted
It's
people
it's
now.
been it's been co-opted by white supremacists.
Very much so.
Mhm.
But you say that the work that is still being done, it's still all about making sure that we can come together from different backgrounds, from all various spaces, and still come together to achieve this common mission. What are you seeing as the trends in the corporate space? What is being valued in employees, the
Mhm.
individual contributors, the people that are in the space? What is the message specifically to us, the established folks, the over 40s, the over 50s?
Sure.
What do we need to know is primo right now
Mm.
versus some stuff we can probably strategically abandon in our work values?
100%. It's tough because what we're seeing is we're seeing organizations completely ditch the American worker and scapegoat AI for it. Oh, well, AI is replacing all these jobs. AI is not replacing those jobs, right? Um, it's just not. What's
Say that
happening
again, please. Say it a
A
little
AI
louder.
AI is not replacing any jobs, y'all. AI is not technologically sufficient enough to replace any job. Um, and there's telltale signs of this just if you just look around, right? First of all, every other week we see news about multi-million-dollar investments and commitments made to data centers only for them to fall through the cracks and not happen. We saw McDonald's trying to implement AI to help with their ordering for fast food orders when you do the drive-through. They ditched that. You see a report by MIT that 95% of organizations that have tried to use AI have not have not seen any return at all on their projects. So there's multiple points of evidence, right? Quantitative and qualitative evidence to show you that show and tell you shoot that AI is not it's not this boogeyman. What it is a scapegoat for organizations to offshore their talent. So what's happening where companies can more and more and more, they are firing, laying off in the masses. I mean, spending billions of dollars in severance packages to then hire talent offshore or nearshore at a fraction of the cost. That is what's happening in corporate America right now. And so when you're over 40, over 50, established, the question just is, um, it's really being very critical about what role it is that you have in your business, and then asking yourself, okay, what is this space viable in this landscape right now, and being so that way you're being prepared, because the worst thing to do is be blindsided with a layoff. I mean, I remember I worked at SurveyMonkey and was laid off 3 days before my paternity leave was supposed to start. So absolutely, it was part of a workforce reduction. This was back in 2022. It was actually October 2022. I was like,
Mm.
like I think it'll be like next week will mark a week before, like to that day, like it'll be like the anniversary of that out, because I just don't forget it, because anyway. So again, another topic for another podcast for another day. But the point is that um you want to be prepared. You want to be prepared. You want to understand what you're doing and the impact. I think if I would be having really frank conversations. Hey, let's talk about, hey, where are we going? What are we doing? Asking, especially if you're fairly established in your career, I believe you've likely built up some type of social political capital. We're able to have a conversation and say, hey, listen, I'm looking at the landscape. Layoffs becoming, everyone's losing it, whatever. And even just asking somebody, hey, look, what else could I be doing right now as the organization continues to shift, shrink, and change? Are there other opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Now, look, they can just straight lie to you. Oh, no, you're fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But they might not. And you might even come with some ideas. Hey, here's what I've been working on. I know there's some AI projects. I know there's this, that, and the third. I'm curious about X, right? But only you know that. So you have to do your research into your organization to understand kind of like where it is you might want to pivot.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I'll say is, again, I believe AI is the scapegoat. But people are really gravitating towards AI projects and AI investments. So
Mm.
where you can take on something that is like AI related or AI something like that, just to build your portfolio and your resume, I think it's helpful. I think it's good. But I just don't. But what I don't like doing, Akila, I was about to say Miss Willery because I'm country. Um, what I don't like doing is trying to tell Black folks, well, if you pull your pants up and tighten up a little tighter and you learn Excel really good, then you can be okay. Like, I'm not going to try to teach you how to beat this thing, because what we're
Mhm.
talking about is the machinations are different. It's not about that. It's about, some of these organizations have decided they were going to lay you off 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, it's about, what I do think it's about is about being as prepared as possible, owning the narrative and asking the right questions, and not apologizing for it, right? So that you can be prepared. I think that if I was in that position, that is what I would do. And then I would also be working to negotiate a really good severance package too.
Okay, now you're from that HR background, so I mean, talk a little bit more about that, because I've got folks that have never even entertained the negotiating conversation, that or that frame of thinking, that the what is the delicate balance with negotiation that we
Ain't
need to
no
know
ain't
about?
no delicate balance with you. So they gonna come at you. It's not. In my opinion, it is not delicate balance.
Mhm.
It's either they're gonna come at you with a severance package, and then you're gonna come back and say, here's what I think.
Mhm.
Or you can initiate the conversation and say, hey, I don't believe that, it seems as if we're getting ready to make some reductions. Like, I'm happy to step away. Here's what I'm looking for and I need, right?
Mm.
On the first conversation, when they come at you with a service package, you just mobilize your employment lawyer and you say, hey, here's what you want, and let them handle the conversation. That's what I did.
I
I'm not
don't
I'm
think
not
I've
having
thought about
I'm not
that.
having conversations. I'm not having no conversation with you. At the point that you decide
Okay.
that you're trying to severance me, all that friendly stuff goes out the window. We not first of all, we wasn't friends. And now we not
No.
and now we definitely not friends. Now we're just talking about ones and zeros. So, in the spirit of it being efficient and getting as much as I can and letting you know that I'm not playing, let me just get my lawyer. Then my lawyer can talk to y'all lawyer. Y'all negotiate back and forth, and y'all get me X. Or y'all don't give me X, and I make a decision on what else I want to do after that. I
I
think that's
like that.
really important. And I would always recommend that, because life is just too short. And I think I get him. I'm an empathetic person. And I feel like I'm a bit of an empath. And I'm also like, I'm a passionate person too. Like, I grade early, but I'm actually not that old. Like, I still got a lot of young energy, straight up.
Hey, I consider them silver highlights,
Thank you so
whatever
much.
you wanna call
No,
it.
listen, you caught me right before this barbershop. I'm literally going to the barbershop in 30 minutes. I'm gonna get this Tyler Perry wig cut off. But so I'm gonna be even cuter when I get out this barbershop. But anyway, the point is like I was telling people, I was telling them like, hey, just talk to just talk to Vince, like talk Vincent Harding. That's my lord. Talk to just it's cool, like just it's fine. Like when they hit me up and because it was literally I swear I was about to go on paternity leave. Everybody
That's
knew.
crazy.
I put my stuff in, and they said, okay, well Zach, unfortunately, I said all right. And they kind of like, do you have any questions? I said, no. I said, no. I said, when you gonna send the severance package? Oh, it'll be in your inbox tomorrow. Okay. I said, cool. I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I said my lawyer handle it, and that was it. And we ain't talk again. You know what I'm saying? And so I think true. Like now, here's how what I'm about to say. Here's what I really think. Like I haven't been telling you what I really think this whole time, but I'm gonna say what.
You were holding back?
Right, right. so, look, I'm not an economist, nor am I nor do I am I like Miss Cleo's nephew or anything like that. But all signs point that we're about to have like a major like global recession. You know, and like when you like, why do you say that? Like the value of the dollar continues to drop. Like it's
Mm,
dropped like more than 10%. Gold and silver have hit their highest numbers like ever. Um, we're seeing like job reports going into the negative. Like they're being revised down from like one. I think the last jobs report was like 56,000. They got revised down to negative 3,000.
dang.
Um, we're seeing that like the whole stock market is being upheld by like 9 companies.
Yeah.
The AI bubble, the AI industry is like what's keeping the whole economy afloat, and yet like it's just a bunch of people like just circle jerking money back to each other. They're not like no one's
Right.
actually making any money for real. Um, we're seeing like we're seeing people default on their auto, home, and credit card loans debt at rates that we haven't seen since like 2008, 2009, and before that. Like there's so many different signs to show that like a collapse is coming, that I think it's just the best thing to do is to figure out what can you do to like get your money in order, and that you can have something to float on for a while. Because
Yeah.
I don't like there's so many you know what this reminds me of? So like I became a licensed minister when I was 20 years old. And so it reminds me of, so I'm country and I'm pretty churchy. But like it reminds me of like the flood, like before they got
Mm,
in the ark. And so like, back then ain't nobody seen rain before. You know what I mean? Like the water
yeah.
came
Yeah.
up from the ground and the firmament was around the earth. Bible study time, y'all. But firmament was around the earth, okay? But it hadn't rained before. And so like God told Noah, hey, it's gonna rain. Here's your thing. Build the boat.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get the animals, whatever. But like I have to imagine, now this is not in the Bible because I don't like when preachers be talking and they're acting like this is in the Bible. But what I will say, just contextually, like imagine if you will, right? Like there was a moment between like the earth being all the way covered in water and like the earth being dry where the rain was coming, right? And like there was
Mhm.
probably a moment where like rain was coming and people was like just moving around,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
acting like, oh, well, this is
Nothing to
different.
see here.
Nothing to
Keep
see
moving
here.
on.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of like in that season where it's like, hey, it's raining. Like, do y'all see this? This water coming from up there. It's not coming from the ground. Like, what are we gonna do? And
Yeah.
I think we would be like, I'm confident. Like, if you go and you probably bring another guest on, or you listen to other podcasts, they'll tell you like, here's the 5 AI products you need to build to make your resume look better, and here's the job
Yes.
boards you need to be applying to. And like, I I want that to be good. I hope they're right. I genuinely don't feel that way. And I don't want to mislead your audience by like
Yeah.
giving them things to like distract them from like looking at the systems that are happening. Cause I think the systems are doing something different. And I think it's important for us to be like really to not waste time.
That okay. And one thing that I'll add to that is with us, and I'm pointing to again, the over 50 crowd. We have been comfortable. We really have thought that okay, I'm just gonna buckle in and just stay where I'm safe.
Right.
And that when I hear people say that they feel that their job is safe or their industry is safe, I want to just kind of, sit down and have a conversation with them. And not to necessarily get people all anxious and everything, but I'm just like, don't ever think that where you are is a sure shot. No part of anything is a sure guarantee. So think of what is the next, or have a couple of different levers that you're able to pull when this main thing is no longer the main thing. It may not
Listen,
be a full, 9 to 5 job. It could be 2 side gigs that make up the, whatever gaps in the meantime. But don't get comfortable. And see, that was we are the generation, with our baby boomers, civil rights generation parents that did get that job and stayed there for 35
got that good
years.
government job with a pension.
That pension. Mhm. But those things, that's not our world today. And, loyalty anywhere is possibly going to leave you heartbroken. And I'm glad you said exactly what, not to, be all doom and gloom. I think that there's some positives to that, is that it gives you a chance to kind of look inward and say, where can I diversify my earnings? Where can I use whatever talents that have been dormant that I can now apply to some type of service based thing, whatever, not sure.
Whatever.
Do we still own land out in the country that some developers are looking to pay top dollar for? Who knows? What does that look like?
Be
Take in,
creative.
yeah, be creative. And everything about your likelihood may not necessarily just come from that 9 to 5 job. And
Mm-mm.
so the other thing that I'll add to that, and I'm not going to get all preachy and philosophical, but I will say that I think some of the things that are happening politically right now have taken up too much of our attention.
Mm.
I really believe that some things have been overly sensationalized to get us riled up, fighting each other, which there are some real things that we need to be concerned about. But you mentioned something about how the stock market is being held up by a handful of entities. And those handful of entities are buying up more and more of other smaller and medium sized companies. And pretty soon, who knows, will we all be working for the same two or three
Mhm.
parent companies at some point. So those are the things that I feel like we need to be paying attention to, but instead we're fighting over, you know, gender bathrooms, or, there's
Nonsense.
bigger problems that are happening. So I'm glad you said that. But
Absolutely.
let me also ask you, thinking, forward thinking, and I kind of want to come back to the mission of living corporate.
Mm.
And I mean, you founded this with the, intention and the mission of talking about how we're all coming together and we're going to work in community to achieve whatever the companies or the organization's goals are. But
Mm.
even yourself, with everything that we've been talking about, the current state of the economy, we have various experiences. What does the future of living corporate look like, considering the shifts that you are seeing and hearing about in your conversations?
Yeah. So, that's a great question. And I didn't say this at the top of the conversation. I mean, I alluded to it, but so Living Corporate, I said before, is an experience management company, and so and we drive and support experience management through three key ways. One, we do brand storytelling. So we work with organizations to help spotlight their leadership and help amplify their brand and their mission. And again, we do that through sitting down and having really honest, frank discussions, kind of like the ones we're having here, but like with their senior leadership or even like entry or mid-level leadership to help amplify and show that, hey, this is not just some soulless corporation. This is a business. Here are the stories of the lives of the people that work here to help inspire and encourage um, talent to apply to those companies, as well as helping potential customers understand the type of people that are looking to work with them, because you see some kinship there. You're gonna be more liable to work with a business that you trust, that you can recognize. And so that's one thing that we do in the brand storytelling. The other thing that we do is we provide e-learning solutions. So we've built like a Spotify type platform, but instead of music, it's learning modules on leadership and wellness and career management and allyship. And so just like on Spotify, you can build out playlists and you can like share those playlists against different genres. You can do the same thing with us. You can build out content playlists and share them in your organization. But the third thing we do is data transformation. So we have the ability to take in whatever data that you have. That could be your human resource information systems data. That could be your salary data. That could be your survey sentiment data. That could be your operations and sales data. And we're able to stitch all that information together in a way that is actionable and insightful. And also and we also build out predictive models to help you understand where your organization is going based on your historical performance. And then also
Mm,
give you consultative advice as to what you need to do to mitigate risk based on the data that we have for you. And so when you ask me about like, where is living corporate going in light of like like where we are, and I mean, I have to have some type of hope, right? That people will never not matter. People will always matter, and we are a people business. Now there's a broader question around like, to me, around like, where does like human capital work go in a
mm,
more in a purely authoritarian context? But I have to hope that we are not going to fully devolve into that, and that we're going to in some degree or regard the next 3, 5, 10, 20, 50 years understand that we need people to do business. And so um I believe that, the work that we do, because it's connecting people, and it's recognizing the power of people, both people in your company as well as the people you need to maintain your company. I believe that we're always going to have a place in
mm.
the market.
I appreciate that. That gives me a little bit of hope. At least
Good.
that people you are what I feel fighting on the side of good. But let me also, give you one more opportunity to speak to this over 50 audience
Mm.
as we bring everything to a close with all of the wisdom that you have shared on this, episode. Tell me what message that the over 50 crowd, the folks that are I'll say the tenured, mature people that still are very viable with their talents, their skills, their contribution to these organizations. What is the one bit of advice that you would like to leave us with?
I've been thinking about this for a while, right? So like, um, I think that courage is a muscle that you develop and not a card that you play. So you think about spades. Do you play spades?
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. You do know how old I am. You
I didn't know you
do
called
know
Big
that.
Wiz. I didn't know. I know. I know.
No. Oh, did you? Yes, yes, yes. I was raised on spades. In back in the 80s, late
Yeah.
70s, it was all house parties. There were no
Yes.
clubs. So
Right.
our parents had spades parties and we sat there right in the middle of it.
So my grandparents play spades. They played spades on a boat. They play spades for money, like on a boat. So then, like our whole family, just we learned how to play spades, right? And then so
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, dominoes too, right?
dominoes too, for real. And dominoes teach you all money ain't good money. That's another. Again, we got like 4 different pods we got to come back to. But anyway, so I ask about spades because sometimes I feel like we think about courage like the spades in a
Mm,
hand, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna wait. Okay, I'm gonna wait. And there's different strategies. A lot of people I know wait and play their spades late, right? Um, because that's what you think about. It's like a card that you're playing to win.
mhm.
But I think that framing is wrong. I think that courage is not something that you wait to display when the chips are highest, but it's a muscle that you practice, that you exercise every day. And the scary part about not exercising is if you wait to try to do something physical, but you haven't exercised, you can hurt yourself. And when it comes to courage, like there's points of courage that there's ways that we can exercise our courage. We can develop our that muscle every day by just using our voice, asking questions, lifting as we climb, advocating for the person next to you, asking for feedback, putting yourself out there to look for a different opportunity. Um, there's ways that you can develop courage. And like, I believe that like there's nothing worse. So I find cowardice like really unattractive. And I think the saddest thing, and I'm not calling your audience old because y'all are vibe, y'all are not old. Like
We are
old to me
flat.
is like 90 plus, right? But believe it or not, in corporate America, I've met so many people that look like me who wait until they're 30 years into their career and they about to retire next week that they want to help me, right?
Mm,
Oh, well, I kind of did everything I could. Well, I guess let me go ahead and do this at the end. Well, don't nobody know you. And no one's taking
yeah.
you serious. You haven't raised your voice before and you're about to be out the door. My advice would be to continue to work and build your muscles, that courage muscle now. And don't think that if you haven't done it, that all of a sudden when it's time to be extra courageous, you're even going to recognize it, because you might not. So build that muscle of courage every day through the little things. That way, when it's time for you to really be courageous, not only do you recognize the opportunity, but you're ready to actually show up for the opportunity.
I like that. I like that. And we're getting all poetic and prophetic talking about corporate stuff. So, hey, we we're blending all the genres. Zach Nunn, I do appreciate you, sir. You actually shared quite a bit that I think the audience is going to get a lot out of. So, if they have met you for the first time here today, I want you to tell them where they can find you, what they can find once they get to those spaces.
Sure.
Tell them all the things, all the plugs.
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Zach Nunn. Like, if you, oh snap, actually, because see, big tech done is Natsifying all the platforms. So it used to be if you typed in Zach Nunn, you would see me, but now you see like this far right MAGA Republican guy out of Iowa. It's crazy.
No.
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify, you are not the far right
No,
white
no. There's a
person.
white man.
Okay,
There's a white now. He might. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out. But the point is, it's not me. Okay. So
gotcha.
go on LinkedIn, Zachary Nunn on LinkedIn. I should pop up. Google Living Corporate. That has not been impacted yet. I'm everywhere where Living Corporate is. Zach Nunn Living Corporate. You can email me at zach@living-corporate.com. Please say the dash. Um, and yeah, I'm around. Like I'm around. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. Again, I love the name Melanated Midlife. I love melanated. I love it. And thank you again. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Hey, and like I said, you have the honor of being one of the few men that have been on the podcast.
How did I do?
You
Be
you
honest. Hurt the other men's feelings or hurt mine. I don't care.
you did very well. Now, I will tell you that my absolute favorite guy that came on the podcast was my husband.
Okay, well, that's
So
fair.
I'll put you in a strong second place.
No, I received that.
Okay.
Please don't get me in trouble or you. You know what I'm saying? It's okay.
Or me. Yeah, but that's okay. I'm going to extend the invitation for you to come back so we can continue talking about some of these
Well,
juicier things that came up.
well, you got to come on Living Corporate too. So we got to make that happen also.
Okay. We have a deal, sir.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Everybody, take a look at Zach's information. It's also going to be linked in the description, but I definitely encourage you to reach out to him, ask all the questions. I'm learning a lot by following Zach, and I really want to promote the mission of Living Corporate. I want to see it successful, number one, but then I also think that it's some good work that's being done. So everybody, thank you for joining us for this episode. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe so that you get a notification when other juicy individuals come on and share all this good stuff for us. So, all right. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll catch you next time.
Peace, y'all.